ever watch an episode of cartoons and you're like, this episode is a lot like another episode of a cartoon? Yeah, that's how I feel about Jimmy Neutron and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. They both did this trope of the main character figuring out that they have a brother and going about how they accept or deny them, adjusting to the fact that they may have a new sibling in their lives. Jimmy Neutron's episode is Brobot, and the Foster's Home episode is called Mac Daddy. Let's jump into both episodes and then start to compare and contrast. What's up, everybody? It's Johnny 2000. Okay, so in the episode Mac Daddy, Mac wakes up to find another imaginary friend in his bed with him. Okay.
Daddy.
Suddenly, this new character appears at Foster's, and Frankie and Blue are just as confused until Mac explains that he may have imagined this guy.
Lactose intolerant.
Mac? What are you doing?
Oh, right. Blue, this is your baby brother.
Cheese. And they keep making puns about mac and cheese and blue cheese, which is kind of uncomfortable. It feels like an adult-themed episode because it reminds me like having a child, like you just tell somebody one day, hey, I didn't know I had this child. Cheese is obviously the funniest part of the episode as they're trying to build a rocket and he is so aggravating.
Cheese? Where were you? I have braces. You found it on the ground, didn't you? Garbage can.
Blue is convinced he needs to get rid of him because he's jealous of the attention he's getting from Mac. And this is where it gets kind of dark. Blue keeps doing things to quote-unquote get rid of Cheese, and it's clear like this would murder him. Most of this stuff is really dangerous. Eventually, Blue actually does become concerned for his well-being. He sees that Cheese could actually die, and these are really disturbing imagery. He realizes that he actually does care about his well-being and doesn't want him to die, and gives him a speech about how he will accept him as his brother. We find out that he doesn't actually have to because Cheese was made up by a different little girl, so they're not actually related. The end.
Made his way into my bedroom that night.
But that means...
Cheese isn't your brother. I'm sorry, Blue.
So yeah, that was Mac Daddy. Introduced a lot of really cool elements to the Foster's Home franchise, one of the most important things being Cheese, who becomes a mainstay for the rest of the series. I hope you notice a lot of the similarities I'm noticing as we transition over to the Jimmy Neutron episode, Season 1. Episode 3A. You guys may remember this one. It's also pretty disturbing. Brobot. Jimmy...
Sheen, do you want to play some baseball? We can use Goddard as a pitching machine.
Can't. Must play Ultralight versus RoboFiend.
Mom, Dad, I want a little brother. Jimmy!
Jimbo! Baby making is very complicated.
Can we have a TED Talk hosted by Hugh Neutron on how to make a baby?
Baby making is very complicated, believe me.
Dad, it's not complicated, really.
Well, you don't know
It's
it.
basically conception, right? Then the 9-month gestation period.
Jimmy invents a robot brother because his friends are too busy for him. So when he invents his new brother, he's obviously surprised at how hard having a brother could be.
Jimmy! You're naked! In the tub!
Brobot becomes increasingly annoying and oversteps his boundaries in Jimmy's life. But for some reason, his parents are super in love with him, which is so funny.
Robot's got toothpaste all over his face!
Oh, this could be our Christmas card! Jimmy scooched out. Brobot, get in front of Jimmy.
Jimmy attempts to get rid of him the old-fashioned way. And when that doesn't work out, he decides himself that he needs to deactivate him.
De-wadding me?
Well, I'm turning you off.
But then we can't play anymore. In your mind, Big Brother.
Geez, this is episode 3A? Why not just be the movie? Honestly, this would have been a really interesting movie. When the traditional way does not work, he decides to invent the kid parents. Aw, I think that's nice. Oh, Jimmy, teaching us about AI way too early. Okay, so now that we dove into Exhibit A and Exhibit B, let's compare and contrast how they went about each of the elements that made the brother episode the brother episode. The way both of them come about is pretty interesting because in the Foster's episode, he just wakes up and Cheese is in the bed. There's not a lot of lead up, there's not a lot of trying to figure out where he came from. Meanwhile, in Jimmy Neutron's episode, he fully makes the choice to invent Brobot, to fill this need that he is missing out on. While there's a little bit more depth to the Jimmy one because there's a lead up to him creating Brobot, Foster's does a unique job at making this a mystery and working backwards to figure out how Cheese got here, making the Foster's side of this a lot more interesting to me. Then we have the annoying sequence. So while Cheese makes obnoxious galloping noises with a pink little horse and interrupts all the rocket making that Mac and Blue do, Brobot is visiting Jimmy in the tub, smearing his toothpaste all over his face. It seems like while Cheese is just downright annoying and being loud, Brobot is actually kind of invasive, and his lack of boundaries are a lot more astonishing. I would say the Jimmy Neutron side of things is a little bit more justified, so they're gonna win a point on this one. Then we have the solution. So the solution to both Blue and Jimmy's problems of being annoyed by this new character seem to have the same solution, which is to get rid of them. They both seem like they're trying to murder them, where Blue keeps putting Cheese in scenarios where he would definitely harm himself or be gotten rid of. Luckily, Jimmy is a little bit less violent, only really putting him on a train and sending him to nowhere, while Blue is intending harm on him. Later, both come to their senses when they realized that this human being can actually be harmed. Jimmy is dissecting him when he comes to the realization that he should care for him as a brother. And when Cheese goes missing, Blue starts having guilty feelings, imagining Cheese actually being harmed. This allows both characters to stop trying to get rid of the other person and do what's best for them to kind of counterattack their first method, which is a really good lesson. Jimmy invents Brobot's parents to give him something to do, and Blue learns to accept Cheese, which I feel like is a lot fairer. Like, Jimmy just gave him parents so he would leave him alone and not come back, while Blue is actually accepting Cheese and inviting him into his life. I'm gonna give Foster's that one. Which one's more annoying though? I would say that Brobot is really annoying because a lot of the stuff he does is invasive and people probably have a lower tolerance for that. But for me, who doesn't care necessarily about that, I feel like I would be more annoyed with Cheese, the way he makes you take care of him. Like, it's very stressful to imagine somebody following you everywhere and doing that. Although, I don't know if I would find Cheese super entertaining because I think he's actually super funny. Which one lasted longer? I would definitely give another win to Foster's here, where Cheese is always mentioned when you're talking about Foster's home, and Brobot is rarely talked about since. I even see people forgetting the episode. He was a pretty big mainstay for me because this was an iconic episode at the beginning of the series, while Foster's had Cheese enter like second season. But it's weird because Cheese ends up coming back in at least 5 or 6 more episodes, where Brobot only comes back like 1 or 2. So he's not necessarily an integral part of the series anymore. Overall, I give the win to Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends on this one. We have to admit that they had 20 minutes to establish what they wanted to do, while Jimmy Neutron did this entire episode in 10 minutes, so obviously there's like a fairness gap there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate all your contributions to my channel. Finally getting past 10,000 was definitely a dream, and I'm not gonna make a speech, but it felt good. So yeah, for more cartoon nostalgia, TV, music, media, and so much more from the 2000s, you know who to follow, me, Johnny 2000. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.